Welcome everyone to the Sunriver U presentation with the SSD presentation of their new proposed building. It's pretty exciting. I'm sure you'll love seeing what they have to show you and all the exciting things they're planning. I'm going to step out of this basically and turn the host of this over to Mindy. Mindy and Debbie will be the moderators for this and they'll run the show. At the questions will be taken at any time you want to write a question, please write it in the chat and it will be relayed to the group by Mindy and Debbie at the end of their presentation, and they'll have a question and answer period. But you can write the question during the presentation and they'll just hold it till the end, so they can combine questions and answer everything you have to ask, I hope. So if we're ready to go, Mindy, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Okay, and actually I'll start this out. I'm Bill Hepburn. I'm the chair of the Sunriver Service District Board. And first of all, I want to thank Scott for allowing us to be on Sunriver U today for our presentation. So today what you're going to hear is our plans, got rather big plans to take the existing fire station, remodel that, add on to it, and house both police, fire, and service district offices in one building and create a Sunriver Public Safety building. Next one, Mindy. So what you're gonna hear today from myself and other presenters, and what we're going to tell you about is where we are today with our project. This is still a work in progress. We haven't this is not a done deal, finished product. We thought it was important to come to the Sunriver homeowners during this process just to let you know where we are. Once we get, so what you're going to hear is our plans, some things we know, and there are a few things we don't know, and we'll explain to you what those are. So we'll all be on the same page once this presentation is over. Next one. So to start off, what is the Sunriver Service District? Well, I'll tell you what it's not. The Sunriver Service District is not the Sunriver Owners Association. Service District has been around since 2002. Now, we work very closely with Sunriver. We have some links with SROA, but we are two separate entities. You know, there's, you know, to show how close we are, there are two SROA board members on the Service District Board, but the two boards make their decisions independent of each other. Probably the biggest difference between the two organizations is SROA obtains the bulk of their operating revenue through our monthly homeowners dues, while the Service District gains the bulk of its operating revenue through our property taxes. And that distinction is going to be important later on in this presentation. So right now, to show you how closely linked we are, even though we are separate, SROA owns the fire station and the office space where the police department is. And part of our project is hopefully the service district will take ownership of the fire station. So it will be a service district asset and not a SROA one. Very briefly, how we got here. The fire station's 26 years old. The facility where the police department is 20 years old. And, you know, I believe, you know, being board chair, that the board, service district board, has not only a responsibility for, you know, yearly budgets and policy for the police and fire department, but we also have to look to the future. And that's what we're doing with this project, is looking to the future. We've made the public safety building part of our strategic plan update last year. And the stakeholders in the strategic planning process came back with two recommendations. One is that we further pursue a public safety building, and two, we form a task force of Sunriver stakeholders to oversee the process. So next one, Mindy. So that's what we've done. Here's our task force members. As you can see that they're all Sunriver homeowners. We have members of the SROA board, James Lewis from SROA. We have some service district members on it, and both fire chiefs. The gentleman in the upper right, Harry Hamilton, some of you know, doesn't live in Sunriver, but I felt that was important to have someone who doesn't live in Sunriver be on the task force, who really doesn't have a stake in this process other than Harry's always learned opinions. Also in this initial process, we hired an architectural firm to work with the two chiefs and members of their department to come up with a preliminary plan of what a new public safety building could actually look like. Next one, Mindy. Okay, so the questions we get are, what is this going to cost me? And the other question is why is this needed? So we're actually going to go over both of those. We're going to take the second question first. And also, just to remind you, one of the things we don't know is we're not entirely sure of the financial aspects of this yet. We'll go over that, but what you'll get today is essentially a range of estimates. So you'll at least get some idea of where the cost involved in this project is going to be. So we're going to start with the second question first, is why is this needed? Go ahead, Mindy. So what we want to do is combine police and fire into one public safety building. As the slides say, an integrated building for Sunriver Service District Administration, police, fire departments that will serve the community for many years. But again, why do we want to do this? Next. So what we're going to do first.
Some years ago, I was.
Mindy, thank you. As you can see, that's John Salzer. John is a former SROA board member, former service district board member, longtime Sunriver homeowner and resident. Plus, as most of us know, he's the person mostly responsible for the formation and building of the Shark. So we'll hear briefly from John. Go ahead, Mindy.
Was president of the homeowners association when we decided to form the service district, Sunriver Service District. So I was instrumental on helping to get that started. And so I helped lead that effort, knowing that at the time it was kind of an interim process that we were going to have to do other things down the road. So when I was asked recently to join the task force again to discuss the need to expand the facility to accommodate the growth we've had, I jumped at the opportunity because I felt that back then, 20 years ago, we would need to do that. And interestingly enough, we thought we'd have to do it in 10 years. And through good management by the police and fire departments, we've been able to continue operating efficiently for 20 plus years. And so I said, hey, I would love to join the group and help educate our homeowners on the need to approve spending whatever money is necessary in order to expand the facility to accommodate our future. When we formed the service district back in the early 2000s, we recognized that one of the problems was the fact that we had the police in one location and the fire department in the other. And one of our goals way back then was to try to have a more integrated approach towards public safety between the fire department and the police. This has not been able to be accomplished as well as we would like because they're still separate. So one of the plans in the future and the expansion is to be able to fully locate those two organizations together so they can work much more closely together in providing us as homeowners good public safety.
Thank you, Mindy. Okay, so our first presenters will be our two chiefs. Our police chief, Corey Darling, and our fire chief, Tim Moore. We'll also see some videos from some of their personnel in the next portion of the presentation. So Chief Darling, why don't you start off?
Thank you, Chair Hepburn. Hi, everybody. Thank you for attending. I know that your time is valuable, and I really appreciate you being here. 3.5 years ago, Chief Moore and I started here with Sunriver. And at that point in time, we had two major goals that we wanted to accomplish. And the first was to bring the police department and the fire department closer together to provide the services to the Sunriver Service District. And we've done a really good job with that. The second piece of that was to enhance the professionalism of each department. And we have done a really good job with that. We've overcome a lot of challenges, but we are in a really good place. One of the obstacles that we have encountered is that neither facility falls in line with what we call an essential facility and what that means. And what essential facility is basically it supports the operational needs during an all-hazard event, whether that be an earthquake, a snowstorm, a windstorm, a fire, a flood. The facility is there for us to work our operational needs out of so we can support the community. Now, the fire department was built in 1995. Currently, it has some structural integrity issues. It has some ADA issues. It has some decontamination concerns. The police department was never designed to be an actual police department. We're basically working out of an office space area. We have no backup power generator, no decontamination facilities, no real security, no interview rooms, no soundproofing, no ventilation hood for evidence processing, no holding cell. And we'll get further into that a little later in the presentation. But before I do that, I really want to invite you to pay attention to what we're going to present to you and ask any questions you may have. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Moore.
Thank you, Chief Darling. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending. It's so important that the community be involved in this process. Sunriver Fire Department is a professional organization with 22 full and part-time employees. Our firefighter paramedics on a daily basis are working in an ever-changing and challenging environment, not only in firefighting, but every time they go out in the ambulance as well. The current fire station no longer meets the National Fire Protection Association guidelines. We have outgrown the critical components in the fire station, such as office space and living quarters. Our firefighters work a 48-hour on and a 96-hour off schedule. So they literally live a third of their life in the fire station. And those living quarters are looking pretty worn out. The following video presentations that you'll see will also highlight some of those deficiencies. Andy?
We're here in our apparatus bay, and this beside me is a big air compressor. And the big air compressor actually fills these bottles that we wear on our backs to go inside of a structure fire. It takes fresh air in here, and then we fill these little bottles from inside this room in here that you saw. The problem that we have is that it's taken air from inside the apparatus bay, which could have contaminants in it. Instead, it should be vented to the outside. So ideally, we would have a separate room that would house all this equipment that's vented to the outside so that would get the cleanest air possible we can to put into these bottles for our firefighters. So this right here is a makeshift area that we created to store our turnout gear. Our turnout gears is all of our suits we use, especially in structural firefighting. These suits here for a helmet, coat, pants, and
Yeah.
cost about $3,200 per firefighter. So they're super expensive to buy. And when you store them in an area like out here in the Apparatus Bay, they're exposed to vehicle exhaust, they're exposed to sunlight, they're exposed to fluorescent lighting. All those three things deteriorate the fabric on these garments. So over time, they become less effective at protecting our firefighters when they go inside of a structure fire, just because the fabric's deteriorated. So ideally, we need a separate room that doesn't have windows, that's ventilated, that we can store all this gear on. And as you noticed, because of the amount of gears, we do structure firefighting, wildland firefighting, and all those different aspects of our job. Well, that takes different gear for each of those things. So if you notice the lack of space, each firefighter has one little area right here to store all that gear. So ideally, we would have a separate room with a better rack system that they would have more space and to be able to store them. Well, what we've done to makeshift with that is we bought these turnout bags to try to store at least the structural gear in there so they're not exposed to sunlight and the vehicle exhausts.
What we do not have is a room in this fire station that we can go into and have privacy and decon our bodies, for one. So what we do is if we go to an EMS call, a hazmat call, a structure fire, or anything that has products of combustion that can harm us, we hose each other off outside. We strip down into our undies and we put shorts and t-shirts on, and we decon ourselves in this area right where I'm standing. As well as we live here. So on the other side of this building is our living quarters and our office spaces. We have a clean cab concept that is in place in policy, as well as a work attire policy, which means we cannot cross the threshold to go into our living quarters with any types of contamination that we may possess from a call. So we do have females that work here. We have 21 individuals here. Our shifts can be up to 7 or 8 people at a time. And it gets kind of hectic with us trying to decon all of our turnouts, all of our work attire, as well as the rigs. As well as when we do have to decon, we are out of service, which means we cannot respond to another call until the personnel, being priority number 1, as well as the rigs, get all back in service and squared away. Last decade or so, there's been a lot of research about the effects of the carcinogens or the products of combustion going into these structure fires, even in the wildland setting, that these carcinogens are causing cancer to firefighters at a high rate compared to the general public. So ideally, it would be great, you know, if we had a position or an opportunity to decon our area, not being in front of our bay or our apparatus, like having an area that we can go into, we can shower, we can wash everything off, we can clean our decon zone and have some privacy, take a shower, not have the potential to cross-contaminate our living quarters, and as well as even a bathroom. Like if someone has to go to the bathroom while we're doing this, we do not have a facility down here. So we, you know, to follow our policy and procedure, we have to strip down and go use the bathroom and then come back down and cross-contaminate ourselves as well as the rest of our area.
If you ever come to the fire department, you would have noticed several department fire vehicles sitting outside. Well, these vehicles aren't spare vehicles, they're actually operational vehicles. And during the wintertime, when you imagine there's snow and ice on them, you know, before we can go to an incident, we have to come out and scrape the windows. And the roof system that we have here over the bays in 2017, we saw that where we had sagging of the roof system, and that caused us to actually evacuate the fire station and operate out of a Lapine fire station south of us while they were assessing and redoing some of the truss systems. The other thing with the roof system too that you'll notice is that all the water runoff runs off right in front of our apparatus bay, which in the wintertime causes ice dams to get the vehicles out. It also causes icicles to form in front of the apparatus bay.
I would just like to finish up the presentation by saying cancer is the #1 cause of deaths in firefighters. And it is so important to have the facilities that those 2 firefighters just shared with you. The other deficiency that we have, and was touched on briefly, is our sleeping and shower facilities. We do not have the accommodations for unisex or female firefighters at this time. We're down to 1 female in the fire department, and that currently hinders how we can recruit females for the future as well. And I just want to finish up by saying and reiterating what Chief Darling talked about in the beginning, and that is the relationship that we have established as police and fire. And really, as we look forward to this building, really strengthens that relationship and makes us the professional organization that we want to be. If any of you are interested, don't ever hesitate to call or stop by for a fire station tour. And thanks again for being here today. Chief Darling.
Thank you, Chief Moore. So now we're going to talk about the police department and some of the deficiencies or challenges that we are trying to overcome. So in public safety, it's a little different from the private sector when we're deciding how to deploy our resources. We plan for what could reasonably happen in our community. And that's unlike the private sector, which relies on a lot of past data and information and trends to make future decisions. Now, what do I mean by that? An example of that would be a simple traffic stop that we do as police officers. Now, we don't know who we're going to stop. And out of 1,000 traffic stops, 999 of those traffic stops could go flawlessly with no issue. However, it's that one traffic stop that could be the danger that could take the officer's life. And you never know when that stop's going to happen. So you have to prepare yourself for each and every traffic stop to be that one that could take your life. I've been on those traffic stops and I know what it's like. Now, I'm wearing what's called a ballistic vest, and it's bullet resistant. In my 32 years in law enforcement, I've only needed this vest one time, and that was September 22nd, 1995. And I was shot twice in the chest with a 9mm. If I had not been wearing my vest, I wouldn't be here today to talk to you. But because I am afforded that opportunity. So like I said, we look at what could reasonably take place. Now, Sunriver has often been compared to as Mayberry. And I just want to say that Mayberry was a fictional place. It wasn't actually a place. But even Mayberry, they had a jail facility, which we do not have. You know, we live in a new era. We have people coming from across the world to vacation here in Sunriver. And one of the things that we've noticed is those people bring their problems with them. We have the opportunity to interact with these folks. And unfortunately, in some cases, we have to arrest them. And we've made arrests on weapons offenses, assaults, domestic violence cases, rape cases, sexual assault. You can name the cases that we've investigated, and they're like any other city across the United States. And just so you know, the Central Oregon Drug Enforcement Team, CODE, made the largest heroin bust in their history right here in Sunriver. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there's a new drug out there. Well, it's not necessarily new, but there is a drug out there. It's called fentanyl. 50 to 100 times more potent than heroin. We've seized that here in Sunriver. And to let you know how deadly that is, just a small, minuscule amount that would come in contact with your skin can cause a person to go into an overdose. And if you're interested, you can go on YouTube and Google law enforcement overdoses from fentanyl, and you will see a live case where a deputy accidentally came in contact with it, went down, the body cameras caught this whole thing on video. And if it wasn't for his partner delivering Narcan to that officer, he would not have made it. So when we talk about the police department and some of the deficiencies, one of the main things that we have or we don't have is security. Our office is pretty much unprotected, and anybody can come into the office and have access to the department. Something that we need to change, and we need to change that soon. Another case that come up is we do not have secure parking. A case that happened here in Sunriver is one of the vehicle's lug nuts were loosened. And when the officer was driving, the wheel came off the vehicle. We're going to have some officers that will explain some further deficiencies that we have here at the police department. And Mindy, if you could roll that, I'd appreciate it.
I'd like to introduce you to our Sunriver Police Department holding cell. It's called the back of a patrol car. We don't have one in a building, which causes many logistical problems for us during the course of our duties. When we take someone into custody for suspicion of committing a crime, in order to process them, we generally have to travel the 20+ miles to the Deschutes County Sheriff's Office in Bend for any number of situations. If it's a DUI situation, we don't have an intoxilizer here. So we have to drive to Bend to put someone through that process of gaining that evidence of DUI driving. Typically also in these scenarios, we issue a citation in lieu of arrest because the crime level is low, and especially during COVID, there's restrictions on who we can and can't take to jail. So that means, again, we have to do booking processing there, fingerprints, photographs, issue the citation. All of that makes our officers travel up to Bend and be gone from Sunriver proper here for several hours in what could be done here in an hour to an hour and a half. In terms of taking a person into custody, putting them in a holding room, that they're secure and safe, and our officers now have the ability to complete the necessary paperwork to process them. Otherwise, if they're sitting here in a car, Officer Capping has to go inside to complete her paperwork, and Officer B, or Lieutenant Wilmer, has to stand here and keep an eye on the suspect who is detained in a vehicle. Again, it's a safety and security not only for the person in custody, but for the officers. That's the same for juveniles. Law requires that we house juveniles and adults separately. Well, we don't have a room at all. So again, sometimes we arrest multiple people in a domestic violence situation. We got to keep them in 2 cars. Now that takes more bodies to watch 2 vehicles. Again, it's a very taxing draw on our resources, simply because we have an inadequate building.
Here to show off our interview room, which is also doubles as our break room. So as you can see, this is the only space in our department that we would be able to bring victims in to do an interview. This space causes issues if someone were to want to take their lunch break, grab coffee, grab water, etc. This is the only room we would be able to do an interview, so we couldn't do both of those at the same time. We're pretty limited on space here. We have a window on this wall, and that causes, victims to sometimes feel like they don't have as much privacy if they see folks walking by. Maybe they're not open to, wanting to tell us everything if they don't feel comfortable. A lot of communicating with victims is building rapport and trust. And if they just see a bunch of people walking by, they can hear folks on all the shared walls. It makes them not want to open up as much. And then as part of ORS, we are required to occasionally video and audio record victims depending on the victim, and this room doesn't have that capabilities currently, so we have to kind of come up with a system that doesn't necessarily look professional. And again, you're working with a video camera and the victim could be distracted and stuff. So a lot of times with interviewing, you want them to be as comfortable as possible. You don't want people not being able to access their lunch if they need to, grab a bite or something to drink on the way out. So we're very limited as far as victim interviews go. And that's a big concern here for us over at the Sunriver Police Department. So this is our evidence, not necessarily room, but I guess hallway. So as you can see, we're very limited on space. So if we were to take in evidence from crimes, this is where we would bring it to process it. A lot of times we're working with multiple objects or large objects, and this just doesn't give us quite enough space to do it. When we're also working with harmful inhalants, sometimes it's an issue that we don't have any ventilation in here. The lighting is poor, so it just causes a big safety concern when we're trying to process evidence here. Occasionally we've had to do it in our break room, which definitely isn't safe to be able to, cross-contaminate those. So we have our stuff stored here. The lighting is very poor for what we're having to work with, and it's just a safety concern as well as trying to keep track of all the evidence that we're bringing in. Sometimes there's a lot of it and there's just not enough room to properly sort through it and work on the documents that we need to when processing the evidence.
Okay, well, thank you, chiefs. Our next portion, they've both chiefs and their personnel have pointed out what the challenges and deficiencies are of their current facilities. Now we'll show you what our proposed plans are to mitigate and alleviate those deficiencies. So our next presenter will be John Ralston. John's our co-chair of the Service District Board and also has had a very long career as an architect with firsthand experience in working with public safety type of buildings. That will kind of lead you through what our plans are. So go ahead, John.
Okay. This is John Ralston. I can't see myself on there. Actually, this project's been on the burner for about 2 years now. In 2014, however, Pinnacle Architecture in Bend did a layout for a revised remodeled fire station that never actually came to be. But then back in April of this year, we hired KMB Architects out of Olympia and Pinnacle in Bend to team together to help us determine what the actual needs are, verify programming, and develop some plans so we can see what this thing might look like. We looked at several different options. The most economical option was a remodel addition to the existing fire station. And it turns out through modeling of response times that the actual existing location is indeed the best location within Sunriver. So the chiefs both worked, as well as their staffs, with the architects to determine a facility that shared many spaces between the two that would encourage interaction between the two forces, eliminate duplication, facility that would meet the essential facility requirements, remain fully operational during power outages and emergencies, is not a Taj Mahal, and will indeed meet the needs of the Sunriver community for 30 to 50 years. Mindy, can you go to the site plan? So this is the site plan. You can see Abbott Road over there to the right. North is at the top of your screen. Down below, you see the existing building. That is the SRO building now. About 2,000 square feet of that in the south end is for the current police station. Up the blue box is the existing fire station. That's about 12,000 square feet. There are 3 additions. You can see those in red. That totals about 18,000 square feet, and that is to accommodate the future needs and the current needs of the police and the fire. You can see some covered parking for the police, and they have secure staff parking within the back. There is also a new egress for the police to the north, so they have 2 routes out. The existing apparatus bays and access stays the same. There's also the public entry plaza right in the center of the building down there at the south, so you know exactly where to go to enter the building. Next slide, Mindy.
Thank you.
So this is the first floor plan. You can see the main entry there to the south into the lobby. The light tan areas consist of the shared areas. That's about 3,500 square feet. Consists of an exercise room and a break area, a mail copy area, SSD offices and conference room and staff toilets. And then down to the south, you can see it's kind of, that reads about the same color. The public common areas, which is a secure lobby with reception for both police and fire, a small conference room off of the lobby. And then a large multi-purpose room, that's about 1,500 square feet. That'll house about 200 people in seats. It could be used by the public, by the community, and then also serve as an emergency operations center in need. There are public restrooms off the lobby, and it's set up so that the lobby, the community room, can be operated and used by the public when the rest of the facility is closed. The red areas indicate the fire. That's about 18,000 square feet total now. To the top where Mindy is now is 3 new EMS bays. It takes the ambulance service out of the main apparatus bay, gives them their own area with a decon and a shower area. And then that frees up space within the existing apparatus bay for additional vehicles that you see parked outside. There is also a clean room for filling up the tanks that Mr. O'Keefe was showing us. And then off to the east is a new addition on the building for secure ventilated turnout storage, the extractor, which is actually the cleaning machine that cleans them, and additional storage. Down to the bottom is the existing hose tower that will be transformed into a training tower. Off to the left is the blue. That is the police facilities. That's about 4,700 square feet. There is a secure entry for in custody holding, and it has booking and intoxilizer. There are 2 hard interview rooms, which also serve as holding rooms. Adjacent to that is secure evidence storage and ventilated adequate evidence processing. There's also unisex locker rooms, as well as showers for decon. There's a juvenile holding cell that is visible from the report writing area. Could also be used for people that are mentally disturbed that need to be watched, was pointed out to us by one of our interviewers. Then also, there's also a room for the bike patrol and the citizens patrol. And then a very important, the soft interview room, which is entranced off of the lobby for taking care of those interviews that you heard about. Then it also has an access directly into the police station itself. Next slide. Second floor primarily consists of fire department living spaces. There are 8 unisex sleeping quarters, as well as a captain's bunk room. And there are 4 unisex shower rooms, dining area, kitchen area, and then just day room areas. And yes, indeed, we have a fire pole. Next slide. So this is a view from the south. You can see the main entryway coming into the center. There's a Sunriver logo sculpture that also serves as a vehicle barrier at that entryway. Off to the right, you can see the existing apparatus bays. We've put some overframing over that existing roof to take care of the drainage issues that we heard about. Also improves the appearance of the building and breaks up that large roof surface there. You can see the existing hose tower that becomes the training tower. And then off to the left, you see the community room and a little patio on the outside. secure parking for the police and entry, as well as the covered parking in the back. Also notice that right over the lobby area is a flat roof area that provides legal egress from the sleeping rooms that are directly above. And it also breaks the roof surface into two masses. So it looks like there's two buildings rather than one just great big gigantic one. Next slide. So this is looking at the building from the northeast as you be coming down Abbott. You can see the three new EMS bays, the existing apparatus bays. And then note that we've overframed the roof on both of those, take care of the drainage issues, and to also architecturally tie to the front of the building. We also have the new police access egress running down on the north. Next slide. This shows the view of the building from Abbott. And what that is the addition for the turnout storage, clean out, and additional storage on the building. And that's my presentation. Thank you guys for watching.
Okay, thank you, John. And just kind of reiterate some of the additional benefits of a shared facility. One, the community room that we want to have open to the public. Police and fire can also use that as a training room, whether department dependent or together, something they can't do now. Also an area for an emergency operations center for police, fire, SROA, the resort, the village to all get together in case of a fire, flood, snow, windstorm type of event. The shared workout area, and the shared reception area are just essentially efficiencies that are built into the project. Now, the reception area, two buildings, two reception areas, duplication of both of those. And the shared areas also encourage the collaboration between police and fire staffs. Fortunately, we're very lucky to have two chiefs that actually like each other and work together remarkably well. And both departments work together remarkably well. Unfortunately, you don't always find that in other places, but we're truly fortunate here in Sunriver that we do have that collaboration, and this builds on that synergy that they already have. SROA gains something from this also, and that the office space that the police now occupy reverts back to SROA space. I know they've been cramped at some times with their office space and people that gives them not only the additional office space, but they also gain the parking in the back where the police cars now currently park. And the fact that we're still going to be in the same location builds, again, that relationship between the service district and SROA. I know the police and fire departments almost on a daily basis are working with the folks from SROA. Next one, Mindy. And other things that we've done, because our goal during this project is to try and keep the cost down as much as possible. And that's always been kind of our guiding light, is how to build a efficient building, but a cost-effective one also. So as part of our due diligence, task force looked at other areas around Sunriver to see if we had a better location to build a standalone building. Surprisingly, there are a few spots in Sunriver where you can do that. But once we looked at what a brand new standalone building would cost, then we decided that's not a viable idea any longer. Plus, the property that could have worked for us for a new place really wasn't all that great for response times for the fire department. both chiefs worked hard with the architects to come up with a plan. A number of police officers and firefighters worked with the chiefs and the architects also. They all started off with essentially their wish list. What do they want in the building? And it ended up with what do they need in a building? And that's what John showed you, is the spaces that are planned for are what the both police and fire departments need in order to continue to operate. So keeping costs down has always been something we've been very sensitive to. And what John presented to you, from the hard work from the chiefs and the architects, is a building that will meet the needs of the public safety in Sunriver for the next 30 to 50 years. And finally, the SROA board is supportive of this project. As I mentioned at the beginning about transferring the ownership of the building, from SROA to the service district, we've been in discussions and are in discussions with SROA to make that happen. There's a long line of contingencies before that occurs, but we're working diligently with SROA and in a very cooperative manner to make that happen. Next one, Mindy. Okay, so the one question we get always is, well, how much is this? Not only how much is it going to cost, but what impact is it going to have on me? Now, this is the part we don't quite know yet, and and as I said, this is a check-in on where we are today on this process. So we'll give you some estimates that we believe are very accurate. But we'll discuss this next in our next presenter to talk about the financial impacts is Ron Schmid. Ron is a former chair of the service district, a member of the Sunriver Rotary, and a long career in the banking industry, who will discuss the financial impacts of this project. So, Ron?
Thanks, Bill, and thank you all for listening and watching to this. And now we're going to go through, and as Bill has emphasized, we really are working with estimates, and the estimates really come into play when we get into the financing option. The architects and contractors have worked and really come up with a range of what this is going to cost of between 16 and 18 million. And this is an all-in cost, including architectural fees and all the soft costs. Now, we are going to try to bring that down. The cost will be offset. The district, the Sunriver Service District, has built up over the years some excess working capital, and they'll be transferring that to chip away at that 16, 18 million. Think of that as a down payment. And we actually will get some significantly more down payment by going to other governmental agencies and for grants and funds from them. And we're partway through that process, but how much we get, we really don't know yet. And so then we get down to the balance, and that is this total estimated cost less the down payments, both from the district and from other governments. That balance will be borrowed from a financial institution at what we believe will be low tax-exempt interest rates and repaid over 10 years. Now, one of our service district board members, Dennis DeShaw, is a commercial real estate lender, and he has been working with a number of financial institutions, and we believe we can borrow what we need, and we believe that debt that we'll have to borrow will be in the range of $7 to $10 million. And this then is just like we built a new house and we ended up with a mortgage. And the mortgage, this mortgage is debt that's going to be repaid over 10 years. And the money is going to come from a voter-approved 10-year capital improvement levy. This is a levy, a tax levy on real property in Sunriver. So whatever this cost is, we're going to spread it over 10 years. Next slide, please. Oregon law provides that districts like ourselves or cities can, if they're going to make major capital improvements, they can levy a real property tax to pay for major improvements. And by the way, this levy will be only decided, this will be decided by the voters of Sunriver. These are the registered voters of Sunriver. And the levy will be for 10 years and then it goes away. It may go away sooner if we retire the debt early, because the proceeds from this tax will only be used to pay down debt. Just to let you know, the levy is an addition. You currently pay in your property tax a recurring annual district assessment for the operations of the district. How much, and you're going to need to know how much will this capital levy cost you as a homeowner? Well, that's going to be a combination of the levy rate and the properties and your property's assessed valuation. Now, this is not the market value, but the property assessed value, which is shown on your property tax statement. And in around Sunriver, for example, mine is about 60% of the market value. The district will establish the levy rates once we know all of these key financial elements. And again, we're working right now completely with estimates, but we estimate it to be about 48 cents to 67 cents per $1,000 of assessed valuation. And when all these variables are determined as we move through this planning process, then we will present to the voters a full and complete financial package, impact statement, and then we will, the voters of Sunriver will have an opportunity to determine if they want to do this or not. So that, I want to thank you for listening to us. And Bill, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, well, thank you, Ron. Yeah. As a reminder, since we're not SROA, those of us who were homeowners during the development of the Shark, we all remember after we voted for the Shark, we were presented with essentially a lump sum assessment. The exact number escapes me, but we had three options on how to pay it off. This will be different. As Ron pointed out, no one will be getting a lump sum assessment. It will be on your property taxes paid out over up to a 10-year period, just to make sure that people realize the differences. So that concludes our presentation. We will have tours of our facilities if you choose. If you want to see in person what the police and fire facilities look like, there's the sign up there. Get it on the Service District website. So we have 2 in December and we've scheduled 2 in January. We've already had our first one. We had, I believe, 68 people there touring that, and they found it both interesting and kind of eye-opening. So feel free to schedule a tour. So as I said, that's the end of our presentation. You know, when these buildings were first constructed and the police and fire personnel moved in, in the mid 90s and in 2001, the facilities were adequate for the time. But over the last 2 decades, industry standards have changed, safety regulations have changed, society has changed. Police and firefighters have been doing an excellent job of trying to keep up with those changes, but unfortunately, the facilities that they work out of have not. And that's why we want to take on this project. And that's why we think this project is important, not only do the facilities need to meet the needs of the professional police and fire departments we have now, but it also needs to meet the needs of the police and fire departments 10, 20, 30, 50 years into the future. So thank you, every one of you, for signing up and watching. The more information that you have, we feel is important. And as you saw in that last slide, more than welcome to write your questions in, and we'll do our best to answer them.
We've got a question from Mark. When do you expect the vote to occur?
Well, good question. We feel we have 2 windows of opportunity for the vote. The first one would be in May of next year, and the second window would be November of next year. It all depends on the timing and when we get all the financial information that we're looking for and desire.
And I'd also remind all the attendees that Mindy is the host now. So if you have questions, please send them to Mindy and not the Sunriver U host. Another question is, what potential is there for roof solar panels? Maybe
John, do you want to answer that? John, you're on mute.
Yep, I'm off now, sorry. Currently, we're planning on solar panels to be on top of the new covered parking for the police. However, once the project goes underway, if it does go underway, we would be exploring additional locations as well. But indeed, solar panels are to be included. The station will also be fit up for coming electric vehicles, electric charging. So once the move from gas occurs, we'll be ready to plug in.
Okay, Katie asks
Hey, Debbie, before you ask the next question, could you move a little closer to the microphone? You're a little muffled there. Thank you.
How's this?
That's better. Thank you.
Okay. Katie asked if there's 200 people at the community room, where do they all park?
We will have bike racks for everyone.
Part of the parking will be arranged through a shared agreement with SROA. So the entire parking lot will become available to them. And now that the police will be parking in the rear, those spaces free up in the back and around the existing SRA building as well.
All the questions that we have so far. So if there's anybody else that wants to chat in a question, please feel free. I'd also encourage people, we have the ability to ask questions on the website. So as you get home and you start thinking about, well, I should have asked that, I don't know about this, we will do our best to address all of those. So you're welcome, as Chief Moore said, to sign up for the tours or pop in or see the website and submit those questions to us. And we want to get as much accurate information out there as possible.
The website also has frequently asked questions that might answer any questions you might have also.
We got one more here, and said that the service district would take ownership of the building. Would that include the dirt under the building?
Right now, probably not. We're still discussing with SROA, so I can't get into too many details, but it'll probably be ownership of the building and lease the property from SROA.
And does the service district include Crosswater and Caldera Business Park, or is it just Sunriver inside the fence?
The service district is only Sunriver. So the people who are in the service district are the exact same people who are in the owners association.
That's all the questions.
Okay, and so again, like Debbie said, if you think of something later, go to our website or drop in. We're more than happy. In fact, we want to answer any and all questions you might have. So to Scott, we can send it back to you. And again, thank you for allowing us to do this presentation, and to everyone who signed on and listened to us. Thank you for your time. Very much appreciated that you care about this and that you took the time to listen to us. So thank you very much.